Cassidy-Rae has a busy and varied musical career that includes releasing great singles at regular intervals, and the latest is Last Chapter, but she's also always on great adventures. So I'm going to ask her about those too. Hi, Cassidy-Rae.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. And the last time I spoke to you in 2022, you were about to head off to Hawaii to perform on a cruise ship. And then I've just looked at your upcoming gig schedule and you're about to go on another cruise working.
I am, it never ends.
First of all, how was Hawaii?
I wouldn't know. So I'm offered a residency aboard Carnival where I get to be an entertainer and I get to perform every night and to hundreds of people, and they fall in love with my music, which is a dream, and they get to sing my songs back to me. It's fantastic. There's certain rules and passes that you have to get to be able to get off the country. So there's a ticket called an I-95, which means that you have to, it allows you back into the States. So I flew to Los Angeles and then Seattle, and then we got on the ship and we sailed to Sydney. But to get this I-95 document, you actually have to physically step foot outside of America and step foot back inside of America to get an I-95. So when I'm normally over in Florida, I would go to Mexico, or I'd go to Jamaica, or I'd go to the Bahamas or Turks and Caicos, and then I come back and I get my I-95, which means I can come and transit through the US, no problems asked. And I got to Seattle, and I then sailed out of Seattle. I sailed through Canadian waters, but I did not get off. Evidently, it's a cruise ship. And then the first stop that we landed in was Hawaii, and they're like, "You don't have an I-95," and I went, "But it's my one time in Hawaii." And they're like, "But you don't have an I-95. So have a look at the view." So I got to literally be on the border of Hawaii and check it out. And the thing is, my parents and I have like this fun game where we've traveled a lot in our lives, and we have a map in our living room with like pins of all the places in the world that we've been. And both my parents have been to Hawaii, and I was like, "Guys, I'm gonna get my pin, it's gonna be great." We're so excited. And the rule is you have to step outside the airport on land. And so I was sitting there in Hawaii on a cruise ship, and I'm like, Waikiki Beach is right there, like Hawaii is like a footstep away, and they're like, "But you're not on the land, so it doesn't count."
How frustrating is all I can say.
It is like, you can only laugh about it. Like, I flew all the way over there, and then I got to look at Hawaii. So hopefully, wink, wink, I might be able to go there this year. We'll see. But yeah, it was an amazing adventure. It was an amazing residency. I made so many new, I can't call them fans, I call them friends. So I made so many new friends that joined the community. It was a fantastic experience, and Seattle was amazing.
That's great. But I suppose if you wink happen to do it again, you will need to make sure that you're stepping in and out. Little trip to Canada.
Yeah, I have to. I really do now.
Well, the good thing is Seattle is right next to Canada, so you could just hop over the border and go back in.
Exactly. And just like slip on over to Hawaii and get that little pin.
I do like you saying that when you're in Florida, you just go to the Bahamas if you need to do that. Just go to the Bahamas.
I did actually. On my very last cruise over there, as a resident, I was aboard the Carnival Sunshine, and I called up my mum and I said, "Dad's working, but you're not. You're free, right?" And she said, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Well, in 2 weeks, I've booked you on a cruise and I've bought you flights. So bring Josh, my brother, and come and hang out with me on a cruise." So I flew them over to Florida, and I got them on a cruise. And they were like, "Well, we're here in Florida. Let's go to Disney World." And I was like, "Well, guys, the documents that I have, it means that I have to get out of the country within 24 hours. There's a difference between a crew visa and a visitor visa." And I said, "I have to physically leave the country and come back in on a different visa. They can't just let me change. It's all their rules." And so I left my bags with them, and they went off to like Universal, and I literally hopped off a ship, went on a plane, flew to Jamaica, ran through the terminal I literally told the flight attendants, I'm like, "Guys, I've got to get back. My flight's in like half an hour, and we've just landed." And they're like, "Cool, all the best, like get right to the front, like bolt it." And so I ran out of the departures gate into the arrivals gate, checked myself back in as a visitor visa, and got back on the exact same plane. And I was the last person on, and they're like, "Welcome back. We were expecting you. Let's go back home." So it took me like a good 6 hours to just fly to Jamaica and fly right back.
Things I would never, ever have known had to be done. There you go. I have learned several things from you already about international travel. Well, about working in that particular environment, actually, because that's what it means. Basically, if you're on a cruise ship as an Australian working on an American liner, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, like a lot of Australian artists that ever go overseas and actually work, not just if they're just a visitor, it's a totally different thing. But if they ever actually work, it's a completely different ball game that not a lot of people talk about. But I've definitely got the 411 on the whole situation. I think I've got it down pat now.
Now, I think your next cruise is not quite as complicated because you seem to be doing the South Pacific, if I'm correct.
Yeah, it's a good way to celebrate the single is to literally go on tour and sing it every single night. So I've been invited as a resident again. So I sailed down to Sydney, and then I'm based out of Sydney, but we sail to the Pacific Islands back and forth from February 23rd. So I don't know how many days that is now.
It's a couple of weeks. Yeah. Look at that. And as you mentioned the new single Next Chapter, so this cruise is a next chapter of performance, but what inspired the song originally?
Oh my goodness, heartbreak. Love and falling out of love and realizing that I didn't want to keep rewriting and replaying the same story over and over again. I mean, if it's Wuthering Heights, I will happily reread the same chapter over and over and over again before I can move on. But this was my love life, and it was just repeating the same sort of rubber band emotion if they get really close and you think it's love and you think it's going to last this time, and then they slowly pull away and it snaps. And I just didn't want to keep repeating it with the same result. So I decided, it's actually time to move on and rewrite a new chapter and get to decide what chapter I want. And it's this perfect time because it's a whole new year and it's a whole new era and it's a new way of thinking about how I approach music and approach this music industry and this career, and how I want to look at the next year of my life and releasing music. So it was like this perfect affirmation to myself, as well as this beautiful song that actually means something else.
Yeah. Now, I am actually stuck on you saying that you'd read the same chapter of Wuthering Heights over and over again. So it's a dark little piece, that novel. So what do you love about Wuthering Heights?
Well, I went into high school and we never read it in high school, and I was like, I've always wanted to understand what this book is about. And some of it is just like, you just got to wrap your head around it. So the first time it's like, okay, I've read it. I've read the first chapter. Let's read it again and actually understand what we're reading. And now that we've understood it, let's actually appreciate it. So there's like a good 3 times per chapter.
Yeah. I understand. I find that book quite difficult myself. But you launched the single just after Tamworth Country Music Festival. How was your Tamworth?
Oh my goodness. The best festival I've ever had so far. I've been to 8, which is like crazy now. I'm like a full-on returnee, a veteran of it. No, it was fantastic. I had a street team, which I didn't create. They created themselves. It was jam-packed and fun-filled. I started with 12 days out, like it's a 10-day festival, and I got there early and I left late. And I had one event every day that I'd planned. And by the time I got to like the 12th date, I was like, oh my goodness, I've had like 4 to 5 events minimum every single day. How on earth did that happen? That's crazy cool. And one day I had 9 events, and I'm like, I actually don't know how I functioned.
No, I don't know how you did either.
But these fans, this community, these friends of mine are seriously amazing. They went, we want to help you make this the best festival possible. We understand that you're an independent artist and we want to be able to help you in any way that we can. It's not just about buying merch. So they called themselves the street team. They got my posters and they would walk the streets every single day, and they would put up posters. They would check the posters that were up to make sure that they weren't ripped from the weather. They would add more posters. They would get people to like put them in better places. I was like, that's amazing. And then we even had some fans that flew all the way from Canada. One fan even flew all the way from Boston, Massachusetts, just for 12 days to hang out and watch me perform. So expectations were like set. But that's like over 11,000 miles they flew just to come and hang out and sing my songs. So it was absolutely amazing. Best festival. Yeah, I can't wait for next year. I don't know how we're going to top this one, but it's going to be topped.
Well, and speaking of, you don't know how you functioned, how did you function by the end of it? How was your voice, for one thing?
Oh, surprisingly, because I am a resident on board cruises a lot, I'm quite used to like my vocal health is on point, very taken care of. For me, it was more just the lack of sleep. Like I was getting up at 5 a.m. being an independent artist, I normally work from home, and it's constant understanding and learning and creating for myself. And being at a festival, I couldn't do the 9 to 5 of being a musician. So I would have to do it earlier in the morning and later at night, and then enjoy the festival and be at the festival and be present. I'm very focused on making sure that I'm in one place at one time and giving somebody my attention. I love that feeling and not being like distracted. So I was functioning on like 4 or 5 hours of sleep maximum every day.
And look, the festival is a bit like that, and one does get picked up by the wave. But last year, because it had been a little while since there had been much of a festival, I remember lying awake at about 3. Well, I was at 3 a.m. thinking I am like an overstimulated toddler. I just can't get to sleep because there's just so much going on. And then it had been so long since there'd been all that color and movement in one place.
Right. Yeah, no, that was crazy. I loved last year. I thought it was awesome. I loved being warm last year. It was very hot. I was kind of like, I had down pat my places of air conditioning that I would like go to and seek refuge from.
Yeah. The Target on Peel Street, I think, is a key venue for a lot of people looking for aircon.
Oh my goodness. There are just so many. All of the cafes as well, right inside at the very back of the cafes, where the air conditioning is the best.
Good to hear. But I guess, the street team, as you said, that was something they come up with themselves, but they have this relationship with you because you do consider them. You think of them when you're releasing things, you stay in touch with them on social media, which does take a bit of time. As you said, you're an independent artist, but I feel like for you, it's been a critical part of your work from the start.
Oh, absolutely. It is one of the most crucial points of being in the music industry for me. A lot of people have a different reason of why they entered the music industry, but for me, it's always now it's just about them. It's about that relationship with them. It's about giving them a voice. I always used to say I actually started music because my best friend was 17 and I was 15 when she passed away to type 1 diabetes, and I turned to music as a way of like, I don't know how to handle this loss. And when words fail, music will speak. And I kind of like drew to that like a magnet. And as I've slowly evolved in this industry and growing up and releasing and evolving, I realized that I wanted to be able to give that voice to other people. And the relationships that I form are so crucial, to even the point now that the next song that I'm going to be releasing is a song called One More Song. And I wrote it because of the audience, and they kept screaming one more song, and I was like, this is cool. First night, second night, this is awesome. Third night, wonder how many nights we can keep going. Like the 37th night, I was like, alrighty, this is enough. Like, I'm just gonna write you a song called One More Song. I am done with this. So I wrote them the song, and I went, well, actually, I'm gonna take it one step further, and you guys are going to come on the adventure with me. Like, we're going to go into the recording studio together. We're going to choose the cover art together. We're going to choose every single bit of it, and you can help me release this, rather than just being like, here's some music, ta-da. Yeah. So to me, it's the most pivotal aspect of music, is making sure that it appeals to them, and it's their voices just as much as it is mine.
And it is great to have an encore song called One More Song.
It's so good now, because when everybody asks for one more song, I'm like, funny you should ask this. Let's sing it. And then it's time for the next chapter. Let's move right along.
Yeah, right.
all my songs just fit in sentences. I'm like, let's start the night by raising a glass and saying, cheers, y'all. Do you want another dose of good vibes? Here's dose of you. You guys are amazing. Literally. And then it just, all the sentences somehow work. I love it. It makes all the sense.
It's true. The master plan is definitely there. Well done.
Thank you so much.
Well, it's a master plan that you shared with Michael Carpenter, who is your longtime collaborator, and you worked with him on this single as well. I'm quite interested in whether you actually go into the studio with him and record a few things at once, or if it is a case of you sort of thinking, this is the right song for now, let's record this. Then you go away and think, oh, I'm going to write one more song, and then put that together and go back to him.
It's a bit of both. So during the COVID years, I went to my good friend and very talented producer, Michael Carpenter, and I went, here's like 30 songs that I'm happy with to record. Let's do this for like the next month. And every day we just went into the recording studio, and we'd like do 2 songs a day. And I'd be like, this is what I want from it. And then he's like, great, let's just go for it. And it was a lot of like, we got into a very cool rhythm where we finished each other's sentences and sandwiches on some days. It was great. Disney reference. But you know, it would just be like, I want it as original as possible, you know, the first take, and it is done. Like, I don't want to do this again. I want it to be as raw as it can possibly be, and as emotionally attaching and connecting as it can possibly be. But then you also have moments where I now write new songs and I'm like, oh, I think this one will go better than any other one that I've recorded, and I think that this is poignant to release right now. That these songs can wait or can serve another purpose. So One More Song is definitely in that. It hasn't been recorded yet. It's at the very basics of like, I've written it and performed it in public so many times because I wanted to experiment and go, let's release a song a different way. Like, let's not keep it a secret. And, you know, like, people tell people about their pregnancies at like 2 months. I'm like, let's tell people like right now, I'm going to release this song. I've written a song. Let me know what you think. Do you like it? Would you change it? What would you change? Like, let's discuss this. Like, is it too long? Is it too short? Let's get it from the ground up and get them as excited about this metaphorical music baby as much as I get excited about it. So yeah.
So that means you have a vault of quite a few songs that you haven't released yet. Yeah.
So many songs that at any time I could just like, I drop them all the time into sentences and like have a little giggle at myself. And if my family happens to be on any of my lives, they'll like drop in like the sentence now and then and like purposefully use a title that I haven't yet released just to have some fun. And so we'll like giggle together because I know all of them, obviously. And they've heard them quite a lot from my bedroom in the recording studio. Like, I would bring my mum along. She's like the photographer. She's the behind the scenes person of like, I've got to make sure that it's okay. Purely for the fact that one day when we released, when we were recording More, the very first time I worked with Michael, she kept listening to the song. It was my very first time. I was really new to this with Michael, and I was a little bit nervous, and I was like, just come along, take some behind the scene photos and listen in. And we'd recorded the grand piano in this beautiful studio, and we didn't realize that the snare had been unlocked. And so throughout the entire piano track, you could hear snare. And she kept like listening to this, and she's like, I hear this. Can you hear it at this time? And I'm like, no, you're crazy. Let's show it to Michael. He's like, no, you're crazy. Don't know what you're talking about. And she was like adamant. She was like, there is something there. Right here, right here, right here. And so we finally like pulled everything back and we could hear it. And we're like, well, darn it to heck. Like, she was right. She comes to the studio now just in case.
Yeah. She can pick up the micro frequencies or whatever it is.
Oh my goodness. But it actually, like, once you heard it, we were like, well done. Now we can't unhear it. Now we have to fix this. And it was a rubato piece, which means it was completely free time because that's how I played it. Yeah. And so I went, the entire song has been built off this piano track, including the timing. So now we have to start from scratch. It was hilarious. I laugh about it now.
You just take the first recording as a rehearsal. That's fine.
Exactly. Yeah. The entire song was done. Let's just start again. Do it all.
Yeah, that's right. But I'm also curious, given you have these songs that you haven't yet moved to put out an album, and I know that this is a consideration given how streaming works, that these days it's not as automatic as release some singles, put out an EP, put out an album. You're thinking about the timing of your singles for streaming. So, but is it tempting to think, let's just put out, like, I've got however many left now in the vault, I'll just put out 10.
Oh my goodness. To be honest, yes, but at the same time, no. So when I wrote these, they've not like, when I want to release an album eventually one day, I want it to be a thematic release, right. Whereas these singles are standalone songs. They technically, you know, if you look at the songs that I've released, I can make a story and it follows that story. You know, last year I released Lately because I was right on the fence, and it was that moment before I decided, and I wanted to freeze that moment in time. And now I've decided and I move on. And now I get to celebrate. And then One More Song comes. And like, there's technically a story that evolves, which could be turned into an album. But these songs, I want to give them as much light as possible. You know, it's not the days of people sitting down listening to songs from top to bottom, A track, B track anymore. It's the days of like 3 minutes is as much attention span as you can get. But also at the same time, being an independent artist, I want to be able to make the most of this investment and make the most of this project and this creative collaboration as much as possible, because I've spent so much time investing in it and loving it that I want other people to love it as well before I go, and there's like 9 other songs and I'm not giving them the love that they need.
Yeah.
So for me, it's for a good long time, it's going to be a lot of singles, not just because of statistics and the music industry requiring singles and it being beneficial to release singles for streaming purposes, but purely because this is a piece of my heart and a lot of my time and a lot of my life, and somebody else's story or my story, or it's a piece, it's a project that I really want to let it stand and go, ta-da, like let's appreciate this in all the angles that we can before we effectively move on.
And that is the advantage of being independent, that you can, don't actually have someone saying now it is time for an album. So I think it's that there's no roadmap for what you're doing really, because the music industry has evolved so quickly.
It really is. It's kind of like you take a step forward and the flashlight just shows you a little bit more, but it shows you the whole world behind of what you've come from, and just like one step forward. But that's also the beauty in it. I mean, it's a catch-22 situation in all parts of the music industry. It's not a 9 to 5 where you can see the next steps. It's kind of like a choose your own adventure, and it's a beautiful adventure that you get to take, because as long as you're loving what you're doing, you get to do it every day. And you get to work really hard at doing it. But, I walk away every day feeling completely satisfied that I've changed somebody's life, or I've impacted their mood, or they got to listen to my song and it meant something to them just as much as it meant to me. And that I get to connect with people on such a really cool, deep level that transcends language and transcends barriers and discrimination and countries. So really, it's this beautiful choose your adventure, even though it's like a wild adventure that you don't know where it's going to go next.
Does it feel like a responsibility ever that you're effectively holding people's emotions as you're singing and creating and connecting with them? Because, when you do affect someone, they will let you know, especially because you have these connections with your fans. But I imagine it's a bit of a responsibility.
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, we grew up listening to music, be it like from a jingle to a movie soundtrack to playing it on Spotify and streaming it on Apple Music. That affects the way that we can look at a situation. Like if you're going through a heartbreak and you listen to, I could use a love song by Maren Morris, you're feeling hopeful and you're going, yeah, it's a really tough time, but I could use this. And I don't think I've given up yet. But then if you listen to Breakups by Seaforth, you're going, this is over, this is done. So it's like really influential in your perspective, and it's not rose-colored glasses, it's this music-colored lens that goes, this is how you can look at life right now. And so a lot of my music, I try and either find the positive spin. Like I've been toxic relationships and lost a friend, and you go, how do you write a song that's about losing a friend and not influence people? And it's like, well, how can I make this a positive? How can I make my space a better place? And so I turned the toxic relationship into affirmations. You know what? I went through the worst possible sort of situation where I was with him and he was telling me he didn't like my music. And I was still thinking that was like, he needed to approve. And I was unworthy, and how could I be more worthy, and let me reach this pedestal that just keeps seeming to get higher. And that was like the chink of the iceberg. Like we did not see what was underneath. I took that and went, well, you know what? I am more, and I am worthy, and I get to choose my own independence. And there are other people out there that are going through this that may not share it. Catherine Britt recently shared her story publicly, and we didn't get to see that until she decided to share it with us. And she is so brave and inspirational, and this incredible woman, as well as an artist and a mentor. Love it a bit. But, it's this moment of, I realized I wasn't the only one going through it, and I could go, this sucks. Life is horrible. This is, I feel unworthy. Or I could go, you know what? I'm going to be my best friend right now and say, and give myself all the affirmations and the reassurance and be that best friend for somebody else and do that consistently, even with next chapter, which is like, you know what? Let's not keep replaying this story. Let's try a new love story. Let's try a new chapter. Let's look at this in a different frame of light. You're not just ending a relationship. You know, not all love stories are meant to be long. Sometimes they're short. It doesn't mean there's any less love, but it's okay to close that book and close that chapter and turn that page and rewrite your own thing and choose what you want to see in life.
So what does your ideal 2023 next chapter look like, musically speaking?
So much music, my goodness. So I'll be releasing one more song this year, which I'm super excited about. And I like that I get to tell people, because the anticipation is building. Like, by the time they release it, everybody's gonna be like, finally, we've been waiting. And I'll be like, now you see what musicians go through. We've had this song for years. Welcome. So I'll be releasing that. I'll be going on tour. I'll be traveling, as well as on cruise ships. I'll be traveling nationally. Hopefully I'll be heading over to Nashville to do some more songwriting. So lots of big adventures and plans. It's a choose your own adventure, and the adventure never ends.
And not only that, you're still doing your social media lives, from what I can see, because you started this during the pandemic. And
way before the pandemic.
Way before, there we go.
Right before I released More, I realized I'd started Sunday sit downs, because I was so creative with my titles. I'm a great songwriter, but when it comes to like naming things, I'm like as easy as possible. So I was sitting down, it was a Sunday. Welcome to Sunday sit downs 4 years later. My habit now is just waking up every weekend and just getting to catch up with this community that we've created, so that, you know, people always go, I want to see some artists that I love after the stage. I want to see them when they're not performing. I want to know the person that they are. And that's what Sunday sit downs have become. It's become this, you know, I get to perform, sure, you get to see the music, sure, but let's actually have a relationship that's deeper than just a musician to a fan. Let's like bridge that and make us this community and make us feel friends and you know, find the similar wavelengths. So we sit and we celebrate birthdays together, we share jokes, we go on adventures. So I'll go live. I remember going live every like Monday at 4 p.m. because it was a Sunday, and I was in New Orleans and I was sailing down the Mississippi River, and you could hear the cruise line horn blaring in the background. I'm like, and that's my time to go. Thank you so much for Sunday sit down. Adios, because I'm about to run out of internet. I'm sailing down a river. So it's like really cool that I get to take this community, these fans, these lovers of music, on an adventure that's more than just songs, and more than just, you know, a 60-second snippet of a piece of my music. You know, it's this whole life that they get to be a part of and join in on.
Well, people can find you on Facebook and Instagram for the Sunday Sit Down, and they can find Next Chapter on the streaming platforms, and find you live by looking at your website. Cassidy-Rae, as ever, a great pleasure to talk to you.
Oh, it's so good to chat with you as well. Thank you.